Thank you everyone for being here for our Truth and Tuition meeting today. We're excited to be here, President Cockett and I, and also some members of the Tuition Review Committee. We're here to kind of express and be transparent to students as much as possible and kind of let them know what's going on behind the money that we're putting forth in this, to this institution. I also want to welcome statewide campuses and USU Eastern, who are also joining us, I believe, live through broadcast. So I'll just kind of go over the timeline of how these proposed increases happen. So on February 4th, we met as a Student Tuition Review Committee alongside President Cockett, and we
Advance your slide.
Oh, forgot about the clicker. Sorry, guys. There you go. There's a timeline. So we met with President Cockett and as well as some student leaders and discussed the necessities in regards to the proposed increases this year. This was also brought forth in front of the Executive Council of USUSA on February 11th by President Cockett as well, and which leads us to this event in Truth and Tuition. So with that being said, I want to turn the time over to President Cockett, and she'll go over all the increases that are happening.
So the Truth in Tuition is actually required by the state if an institution is planning, a public institution is planning to raise the tuition. So you will hear what our proposal is. We don't take a vote, etc. If you are concerned when you leave here and you would like to make a statement that you do not approve this, you can actually write the USU Board of Trustees, or you can actually contact the Utah Board of Regents. It's the Utah Board of Regents that make that final decision. You're also welcome to come to those meetings as well and express concern, support, or whatever. So the actual approval process then rests with the regents. Okay, so I thought I would just get right to it and show you what it is. After some careful thought, as well as the discussions that Sammy mentioned, we are proposing a 2.8% increase for the Logan statewide, and then what appears to be a higher percentage, but if you look at the number here, a lower amount for the Eastern Moab Landing campuses for those students who have taken 65 or fewer credits. I will further explain what we're doing there later on in the presentation. So for those of you that are at the Logan campus and all of the other campuses that are taking 1 through whatever credits, as well as Eastern Moab Landing campus, who are at the 65, more than 65 credits, it will be these numbers here, the 2.8, and this is per semester, okay? And it's an estimate, or this value is for full-time undergraduate students taking 12 to 18 credits, okay? So that isn't per credit, that would be if you're a full-time student, that's how much more you would pay per semester. So that's the bad news, okay? So now I hope to be able to convince you why we need to do this. This is the uses that we are proposing, and this is the amount of money that will go to each of those 4 things, okay? And the amounts are based on a flat enrollment. If we have an increase in enrollment, we will actually have more money. What I'm going to tell you is that these are things that I feel we must fund. And I believe that that's what the tuition committee felt after they heard my explanation, and the USUSA Executive Council felt after they heard my explanation. So to begin, the first and the biggest pot of money we need is for USU salary increases. This is all staff, including faculty, advisors, facilities, et cetera, et cetera. So the way in the state that it works, the legislature decides how much state employees will get as an increase in the coming year, starting July 1st. The legislature decided 2.5%. And then they do a very interesting, I was going to say wacky, interesting thing. They say for all other public institutions, the legislature will give those agencies or those institutions the full money required to do that 2.5% increase. But they say for public higher ed, you need to get it out of tuition, 25% of that. We're only going to give you 75% of the money that it takes, okay? Now, it is the way it is, and Sammy will talk about that a little bit more later, of how we hope we could get that changed so the legislature would give us 100% of the money and we would not have to turn to you to get that portion. The second thing is exactly in that bucket. We do promotions for our faculty. And this year, based on who has requested those promotions, we think it'll cost $1.2 million of salary. The state does not give us that money. They say, get it out of tuition. So what this is there's 2 times in a faculty member's academic career that they get promoted. Only 2. They're just 2. You can be a faculty member for 50 years, and there's only 2 times you get promoted. The first is when they move from assistant to associate professor. That's for most people 6 years after they've been here. Okay? That one's interesting because if you don't get it, you have to leave. Okay? So those that get it get a promotion increase. The second time is when they move from associate to full professor. That actually only happens for 75% of our faculty. Sometimes people just always are associate professors to the end of their career. So as you can see, these are very, very big moments in our faculty's life. And these promotions, we want to reward them. We want to adjust their salary to say you are truly, somebody we want, we respect, we value, we've evaluated you, we want to provide that increase. That, as I said, is also not paid by the legislature. The next one, another one that's not covered by the legislature. It's this internal service fee. So Utah, the state of Utah, has a risk management office that is essentially our insurance. And just like all insurance agencies, from time to time, in fact, every year, they raise the premiums. The legislature, again, doesn't cover the full cost of premiums for higher education. They say, higher education, get it out of tuition. Do you see kind of a continuing story here of what's happening? And then, so those 3 things, if the state would fully fund our increases, we would not be asking you to support this. That's the bottom line. The final one is something that we learned a bit by a hard lesson. When you do raise tuition, if you don't also add more money to the scholarship budget, those scholarships don't fully cover whatever the amount is. So from that, we backtracked of our needs-based scholarship. We want to fully fund those scholarships. That would take an addition of $205,000 to fully cover those scholarships if and when we increase tuition 2.8%. So as you can see, a very, very specific knowledge of what we needed to cover these things. Then we went back in, estimated flat enrollment, and that's what it would take, the 2.8 for Logan statewide, the other amount, et cetera, for those other people. I wish it was different. I wish I could say no tuition increase this year, but we have no way to cover these things. All right, so then you're saying, well, tuition's always increasing. Yes, that is true. If you look at, this is just the years, there's the percentage. This year, 2.8, the lowest it's been, if I move this out 20 years, this is about the lowest increase we've ever done. And there's the rate for a full-time undergraduate student, Logan statewide campuses. It will move your tuition from what you pay right now per semester, if you pay full tuition, $3,274, I should stop pointing, and up to $3,366. So it's an increase of $92 per semester. So I guess you could say in the last 6 years, your tuition, if you've been around here that long, you used to pay $2,808, you now pay $3,366. That is for that. Now, you noticed, as you remembered, I said that this Eastern banding increase for people under 65, credits was going to be a lower percentage. Well, it actually is also a lower amount of $62. Or sorry, it's a higher percentage, but it's a lower amount. And the reason is because they start out at a lower tuition. I don't know if you folks knew that, but students in Price and Blanding have been paying lower tuition. They started as a community college. We merged with them, and we have tried as much as possible to keep that tuition low. But they do need to contribute to those things on the previous slide: faculty promotions, staff compensation, the insurance premium, and the scholarships. So we calculated that contribution as this 3.5% increase. Okay, so again, as you remembered from another slide, I said this is the lowest that we've been over these years. So these are the things that I've explained to you that we have no alternative but tuition. We've basically been told by the legislature, you need to get it from tuition. So that was something we've always asked for. And then in the past, we would say to the Student Tuition Committee, we would say to the USU SA Executive Committee, would you be willing to help us with some other things? And that's what's shown here. In all these years, we would do these basic things that we have to do, what I'm referring to as mandatory increases, and then we would add other things: student analytics, tutors, general education bottlenecks, library journal subscription. There was the year that we purchased that Alex Math Prep instead of doing the math placement, this one that's kind of self-tutoring, which we heard was a great thing. So we brought a couple ideas to the Student Tuition Committee and USU SA, and they, I believe wisely, I totally, fully accepted their recommendation. They said, no, just do the basics. We have got to, stop, increasing. So as an alternative, if you felt that we weren't doing something that you would like, you're free to make a recommendation for something else. We would then take it back to the tuition committee, we would take it back to USUSA, and then we would move that on further to the Board of Trustees and the Regents. But I'm guessing you are probably like our other two groups saying, no, keep it to the essentials. Okay, we're now going to talk in the same meeting about student fees. And Dexton Lake, Executive Vice President for USU SA, is going to do that conversation.
The Logan Campus Student Fee Board, which is comprised of, yes, you're right, which is comprised of student leaders and students at large from the university, approved an increase for the library of $1. This will go towards better funding open educational resources. This includes a fully funded position, allowing the library to sustain current progress and expand investment into further areas of innovation, support, and promotion of OER. The Logan Campus Student Fee Board denied a 50-cent increase for the library to go towards video streaming, citing that would be a better use of course fees since these streamed videos were utilized by only a few colleges, mostly the College of Humanities and Social Sciences. This brings the total amount paid per semester to $33.69. The Logan Campus Student Fee Board approved a 49-cent increase to counseling and psychological services. This is intended to go towards 2 of CAP's pre-doctoral internship positions in order to meet the job requirements of an exempt employee per FLSA guidelines. This is the cheaper alternative compared to not having an exempt status for both positions. This brings CAP's total per semester paid by students to $14.45. The Logan Campus Student Fee Board approved a $2.97 increase for the Student Health and Wellness Center that would allow the hiring of a full-time psychologist. The primary role of this position would be clinical service delivery and supervision of graduate student therapists. The board noted this was a second increase for mental health services in the last 2 years, and we called upon the university and the state to take a more active role in addressing mental health here at Utah State University and throughout the state of Utah. No changes should be made to the current regional campus student fee amounts. The board did approve large changes to their policy, which we'll talk about here in a minute. The changes involved the combination of the Regional Campus Fee Board, the Blanding Student Fee Board, and the USU Eastern Student Fee Allocation Committee into one body, the statewide campus student fee board. These changes will be submitted for approval by the Board of Trustees. These changes are anticipated to take effect next year. If you look here at the timeline of when this happened, those boards met late of 2019 and early into the year of 2020 and made these policy changes. Also of note, during the Service Region Fee Committee meetings in November, 3 of the 7 regions represented by Regional Campus Student Fee Board voted to increase the CAPS fee as part of their annual fee review. They specifically cited a need for increased access to these services, specifically face-to-face access. At the Regional Campus Fee Board meeting, all of the members expressed general support for an increase, but were not sure if their specific regions had a need. The CAPS fee ultimately was collapsed into the instruction and student support fee. The Regional Campus Fee Board ultimately approved leaving that fee at its current level with the intention of asking next year's board to revisit the subject. They felt strongly university administration should be aware of this matter. Lastly, the Regional Campus Student Fee Board approved adding the athletics fee to better accommodate USU Eastern. In regards to questions regarding the Eastern Fee Board, please contact Bryce Gingery. In regards to statewide fee board questions, please contact Dacia Talbert. Please note that all these serve as a recommendation to the president from the students. From President Cockett, the Board of Trustees will vote to approve these fee increases. Then the Board of Regents will vote to approve. I want to call upon your attention to this timeline as it notes that the Eastern Fee Board and other statewide fee boards, regional campus fee boards, mesh policy into becoming one statewide fee board, so it wasn't so convoluted and so that there was equality in it. But also, because of this, there was an increase of student fees for USU and Blanding campuses from $260 to $363.07. And that makes it align with other statewide campuses, so there isn't such ambiguity in how student fees are paid on a statewide and Eastern campus level. As something I do want to note, in terms of transparency, I've taken it upon myself as Executive Vice President and Chairman of the Student Fee Board for the 2019-20 year to make student fees more transparent. As a result, one of my initiatives has been the creation of a student fee page that can be found on the MyUSU portal with fee definitions, descriptions, fee expenditures per semester, and per year, as well as new videos that have been produced breaking down each fee and how they are used. And these videos are being added as we speak, actually. And so if you have any questions regarding transparency and how your student fees are spent, I would highly encourage you to go visit that tab on the MyUSU portal. You can find it right beneath the TouchNet payment system tab as well. So we're making great strides in making student fees more transparent. And please note, the page only accounts for Logan student fees. And that is my report.
So, you've heard now what the proposed amounts are, both on tuition and in fees. And I'd just like to go for a few slides, show how USU compares to other similar schools, and then to talk about a couple of ways that we are working towards a concept of affordability, which is please, please, please don't keep raising the cost of education. So the first thing I wanted to mention was a comparison of USU's tuition to other peer institutions, and they're listed down here at the bottom, all across mostly the West. These are comparable to us because they are also the land grant. Okay, the land grant offers research, education, outreach, et cetera, et cetera. We're all about the same size. We offer the same services. We have about the same enrollments. It is not appropriate for us to compare ourselves to, for instance, UVU. UVU does not offer all the opportunities. They have a different faculty salary range, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when you do compare us to peer institutions, when you take all those other institutions and take an average of their tuition fees from last year, you would see that if you went to the average of those was almost $9,000. Ours came in for a full 2 semesters at $7,659. So previous semester times 2, that's that number. We are then, if you do the math, 85% of the average of our peer institutions. We are under the majority of these peer institutions. We are actually in a ranking 8 of 11. And the cheaper ones are University of Wyoming. They do a very substantial offset from their natural resource extraction taxes. And Montana State also is cheaper. They recently did a new initiative to reduce the expenditures towards research. As a president, I'm not actually advocating that. And then the final one, I think it's New Mexico State. So we are more expensive than New Mexico State, Montana State, and University of Wyoming. The others are all more than we are. Now, the other area is, I've been showing on that last one, resident, those who are students who are residents of Utah. This same percentage is applied to the non-resident tuition as it is to the resident tuition. So if you are a non-resident undergraduate taking 12 to 18 credits, you in 2019-20 paid $22,197. This is the average of the peers. We're 88% of that. See a little bit of math, training here. And we rank 10th of 11th. And it's Montana State, I think, that's lower than we are. You might be wondering, why are you not comparing what's happening in 2020 to 21? We don't know what these other institutions are doing, but from all we've heard, they will be higher increases than ours. But that's not official until they get final approval there. Okay, so I said that we also wanted to talk to you about a couple of things we're doing about affordability. How can we manage this ever-increasing tuition? regardless if it's only 2.8 and 3.5%. We know those are actual dollars that you pay. So I wanted to just remind you again, do not lose the opportunity of the plateau. It turns out that most people don't know this idea. They know the concept. If I take between 12 and 18 credits, I pay the same amount as if I was 12. That is actually, in our terms, university terms, that's the plateau. I don't know why it's called that, but that's what it's called. And basically, you get free credits. You don't have to apply for a scholarship. You don't have to have a certain GPA. You don't have to be in a certain activity or organization. If you take between 12 and 18 credits, you pay the same amount as if you took 12. It's free. Okay, so all this is to show you the savings that you can have if you take 12 credits, pay for every one of those every semester, versus 15, which you get 3 credits each semester for free, and you're trying to achieve the bachelor's of 120 credits. If you do the math again, it will take you 5 years if you only take 12 credits per semester. It will take you 4 years if you take 15 credits per semester. So if you take 5 years, this is how much you're going to pay. If you take 4 years, this is how much you pay. So you can essentially get an $8,000 scholarship by following the plateau. If you're a resident student, you definitely want to be in on that plateau. It goes from 91 for the 4 years to 113, almost 114,000 per year if it takes you 5 years. Okay, now I'm going to move into something that is a little bit, it's a change. It's a big change for people that are at 3 of our campuses. One campus is going to be very happy. The other 2 may be a little perplexed on why we are doing this. And that is this concept that for Eastern, the campus in Price, Moab, and Blanding, we are going to set 2 kinds of tuition. One is if you're in 1 to 65 credits, and the second is if you're more than 65 credits. What we're trying to do is say in those 3 campuses, if you're working essentially on an associate's degree, like you would have done if we had left us a community college, you will have this lower community college tuition. And that's what's shown here. You will pay $2,184 per year, that did not get changed. And so for 4 semesters, which it should take you about that much, it would be $8,000. And then here's non-resident, 23. So there is no doubt that these 3 campuses have lower tuition than what you pay in Logan and the Uinta Basins. We've set up their budgets this way. Again, may not have as many resources as that are available in Logan, but that's what's happened there. Then what's going to happen is if you go if you go greater, greater than 65 credits, students at these campuses go to the Logan statewide tuition table. Okay, so Moab will really love this because they used to have to do all credits at this higher tuition. Eastern and Blanding may be a little unhappy about this because they were getting all 4 years at that lower tuition. But when we look at the budget, we simply can't offer the services, the opportunities, the support to those 2 campuses without making this change. So I realize that I could get some questions about this and comments when we go to online. Now, the other thing, though, in the other direction is something we're very, very excited about. So at Eastern Moab and Blanding, we actually teach tech ed. This would be something that here in Logan is at Bridgerland. Brigham City, Bridgerland and Brigham City. Tooele Tech College. You went to Basin Tech College. We actually are the deliverable unit of tech ed for 4 counties, Carbon, Emory, Grand, and San Juan, and these campuses, Eastern Moab and Blanding. Well, we were actually charging for tech ed the same price as that community college tuition. It is higher than what any other tech ed college was charging, okay? And so we've now righted that amount as well. We have actually moved them to a third tuition table that is comparable to what's being charged at Bridgerland, at UNA Tech, at Davis, Weber, Mountain Land, wherever, those tech colleges. So again, a little bit confusing, but I have to be able to explain this to you guys because it's truth and tuition. I have to be able to explain this to the Board of Trustees because they need to approve it, and I have to be able to explain it to the regions so they will approve it. I would say, in summary, these adjustments to tuition are writing something for those 3 campuses. If you're taking tech ed, you should only have to pay the amount that a tech ed certificate program costs. If you're doing a less than 65, what's essentially an associate's degree, you should pay what a community college charges. If you're going to do higher than 65, move into a bachelor's degree, then you have to pay the tuition that's comparable to all of our bachelor programs. Of course, the next question is, can we do that for everybody? I need money from the legislature to do that. We've actually estimated across the whole public ed, if we were to move all across the entire system to an associate's degree, lower tuition, it would cost $30 million. The vast majority of that would have to come to USU and the University of Utah. And so far, we haven't been able to convince the legislature to do that. I'd like to then turn it back to Sammy, and he's going to talk back on that idea of why do we always have to raise tuition for those certain things. So, Sammy.
All right. So hopefully that clarifies a lot of questions around tuition. And I actually really want to thank President Cockett. When we had our tuition review committee meeting, she explained to us in clear terms exactly the needs that were behind the increases that were happening. So I'm very grateful that we could have that opportunity, and so we can fully understand it, so we can be accountable at this event today. The other thing I do want to mention is her willingness to listen to our input as students, because this affects us. There were other things that were proposed as part of the tuition increase, and the moment we didn't feel comfortable with it in raising any more, she 100% agreed with us and fully supported us immediately without any hesitation or problem. So I want to thank her for that as well. The one thing I want to talk about in regards to these increases, I want everyone to understand that this is the bare minimum raise that we could do and still maintain, I guess, the economic needs and work within the constraints that we have. So we're probably feeling as students, well, this sounds like a state legislator thing, a bigger than us thing. In a grand scheme of things, it's going to require a lot of involvement. And the best way to attack this is through the student body presidents network we have in this state. That's called USA, and all the public institutions, and we have some private institutions that are guests that are invited to be part of it, sit on this board, and we discuss issues that are affecting students throughout the state. And these are the things that they can bring forth. So my plan next year is to bring this idea forth to all the students, to all the student body presidents that are involved, and say, hey, what do the increases at your institutions look like, and can we fight this collectively? I think some of the fundamental misunderstanding that we have about tuition is we think it's university administrators sitting in a room going, where can we go on vacation this year? Let's raise tuition. And so we can bump up our salaries. That's, as we can see, that's really not true. And if we can show that state legislators that we have a fundamental understanding of how these increases happen, then it increases our ability to convince and show them that they need to be covering some of these, so our education becomes more affordable. So that's the plan of attack that I have in mind, is to bring this to USA. The one thing to remember with this is it's not going to be a one-year thing where it's going to be done because 11 student body presidents got together and brought it forth, but it is something that we can always keep at the forefront of the legislator's mind. If USA doesn't agree, we as an institution still have some power, and we can still work with President Cockett and other administrators in supporting them and going to meetings or whatever where these things are discussed, showing them that we're fully behind them and we understand the constraints they are facing, and kind of move away from the idea of why don't we cut costs somewhere else? Well, some of those things are precious to some students here. We can't just always look at taking something off someone else. So I do want to express that, and again, I do want to thank President Cockett in explaining that in clear terms. So when we go out there and students hear that tuition is going up, I hope those of you that are here can explain these constraints in an adequate way so that they realize tuition did honestly go up with the minimum, to the bare minimum that we could afford to do so. So with that, I want to open it up to questions. I'll be up here, and it could be addressed to me or as well as President Cockett, and we'll be happy to field any questions do you have. This also goes to Eastern and statewide campuses. You can email them in.
So with the raises that happened in the past, those fees, do they happen every year that we have to cover them? Or does the budget, sorry, it's hard to explain this question.
No, I think you're asking, are they one-time or ongoing?
Yes, thank you.
That's our turn. Fees or tuition? Yes, it is an ongoing thing. So salary increases, if you've ever had an opportunity to get a salary increase, it does raise your salary permanently, ongoing. We don't do bonuses, which would be one time.
Right, I do understand that. But the things that have happened in the past, like you showed us past year increases and why those happened, are those ones ongoing?
Yes, then? Those are ongoing as well. For instance, there was one called Classroom Improvement that created a fund of, is it about $200 or $200,000? It was voted on 2 years ago. And Dexton, do you want to talk about that? But that one's ongoing. All those that I've shown are ongoing. So when we did a library journal subscription, that was an ongoing expense. It raised the budget for the library. The ALEX program is an ongoing program. Now we have that. So all of them are ongoing. But Dexton, you might.
Yeah, so another one of my responsibilities is chairing the Facilities Enhancement Committee, and it's in its second year. We've awarded that for this year, but we haven't notified the recipients. Last year it went to things such as improving student safety through lighting. $65,000 of that fund was allotted towards that, and that's going to improving lighting on Old Main, including improving security for LAEP students in the Fine Arts Building. And last year it mostly went to security. And so while, yes, it was a tuition increase, it was $200,000 that students get to delegate where it goes to improve facilities at Utah State University. And so there's been drastic improvements and will continue to be drastic improvements to Utah State through this tuition increase that created this fund. So that's an instance where tuition increase ended up being a very positive thing.
And it's replenished then each year.
Right.
Does that help?
Do we have any from statewide? Okay, any other questions? So we're trusted 100%, no complaints.
Do you guys have other questions? No? No? Okay.
All right. Well, with that, I guess, thank you for coming, and I do want to reiterate again, USUSA and myself are in 100% support of all the increases that have been proposed, and we support President Cockett in these. So with that, thank you for coming. Eat some extra pizzas, and we appreciate your willingness to be here and listen to us.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.